my English may not be perfect, so kind of bear with me. I'm going to try and express myself to the best of my ability. So, I'm the first speaker, and today I'm going to talk about something that I'm probably completely unqualified to talk about. And I think that's okay. And in fact, I think that's probably a good thing. And I think when it comes to economics, which is what I'm going to talk about, I think it's actually necessary for people who are unqualified to talk about economics. More specifically, I'm going to talk about a community of students, a network of students that I'm involved in, called Rethinking Economics. And my biography, my short biography in the handout that you've been given is a little bit too common. I'm not the co-founder of Rethinking Economics per se, I was just there when it was founded. So my opinions represent my own, not an entire pluralistic community, and that is precisely the point. So, to rethink economics, we need to think about what rethinking economics implicates, what it involves, how we're going to talk about economics in the classroom, in media, and in political narratives. So I never studied economics. I was never formally trained in it. I never used economics with any more intensity, I guess, than the average person in this room. But that's okay. My passion has always been medicine. When I was 15, I decided to study pre-med, and I wanted to become a doctor. And even though I studied mostly biology, my passion was physics and chemistry. And there was a good reason for that. Because at 15, I liked physics and chemistry because there were laws and there were rules. And there were fundamental units of knowledge in physics and chemistry that makes me feel safe. Because the predictability of physics and chemistry is reassuring. And I think partly that is human nature, right? For us to want to have a set of paths that we can clearly follow. For us to want to devise some kind of system to understand the complex world around us. But this kind of human nature, although it's helpful at times, sometimes it's disastrous, and sometimes it leads to very inhumane outcomes. And I think this is the state of mainstream economics right now, where we are too afraid to move on from a system of thinking and a system of action. So I gave up on medicine. I'm a dropout, a med dropout, and I'm studying something else now. And the reason was because I wanted to become a doctor at first, and later I did that mainly because I'm too lazy to put in the time and resources. But more importantly, I think, a bigger reason is I realized that a lot of things that restrains what a doctor can or cannot do is the politics and economics of a country. And that goes the same with science. What you can research, what you can publish, is determined by societal, cultural, political, economic factors. And that's when I realized maybe things are not so simple, that the world we live in is influenced by things, and we need to be open to that idea. So the rigidity of economics right now is a problem. And I would just like to start with maybe like an icebreaker. So this is a great icebreaker if you want to introduce yourself and let people know very embarrassing things about you. But let's talk about it in terms of economics. So I'm going to give you 3 facts. And it's called two truths, one lie. And you're going to guess which of these 3 facts is a lie, and therefore the other 2 are true. Everyone following me? Yeah. So 2 truths and 1 lie. I'm going to obviously not give it in that order, right? That's really the point of the game. Sometimes people think that is the case, I don't understand. But anyways, here goes the first fact. The average wealth of the bottom 90% of the US economy has almost virtually unchanged since 1986. That's our first fact. Second fact, 85 individuals in the world hold as much wealth in their hands as a third of the world's population. Second fact. And the last one, economics as an academic field is one of the most sexist fields for women, more so than physics and mathematics. Now, I would like you to just maybe talk to the person next to you, introduce yourself for 30 seconds, and think about which one of these 3 is a lie.
question about it. We guessed that like 1 and 3 are the truths, and 2 is the lie because it's not far enough. It's in fact 50% rather than a third.
So the second one is a lie. Did anyone have a different answer?
I thought the first one was a lie.
Can you elaborate?
Because I thought probably the situation would be worse.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell the answer with a bit of caveat that on a superficial level, the second one is a lie. I mean, on a pretty kind of general level, because it is in fact, as he said, 85 people in the world own as much as a half of the world's population, not a third. So it's much, much, much worse than that. On the first one, right, it depends on how you actually measure it. I'm not going to go into like the details of economics, but there's a lot of research suggesting that this is in fact true. That for the bottom 90% of US population that has not seen much growth in wealth. And the last one is also true based on a few research papers. That the academic field of economics is incredibly sexist. And there's research papers I can point to you after this that discusses that. But if you look at The Economist, I think last month, they published like 25 top economists in the world. Not one single of them is a woman. Now, I'm not sure if that says more about economists or whether that says something about economics like an academic field, but I think it says something about both, right? And I think when we start to say, you see Bill Gates talking about we need to have more young girls, we need to have more women in science. But then again, you have like 12 women that have won Nobel Prizes in science, whether it be physics, chemistry, physiology, or medicine. You have one woman that has won a Nobel Prize in economics. Why do we not see people talking about having more women and young girls in economics? That's a problem. So what I'm going to talk about today is about rethinking economics. I kind of introduced that. But basically, we're a community of students, and we want to demystify, diversify, and invigorate economics by changing the way that it's being talked about in political narratives. And there's kind of 5 main ways I want to talk about today. Sorry, the system of notes isn't really working for me today. No, it's okay. So the first one is economics is not value neutral. Because a lot of times students go to university and they're kind of like being introduced to this concept of economics and this notion of economics. It's value neutral. Economics is philosophical, it's political, it's ethical. There are political claims when we say economics is a certain thing. When we say free market means a certain thing. Those are political and philosophical claims. When we say that you can't have equality and efficiency at the same time, that's a political claim. And when we say, therefore, we value efficiency versus over equality, that's an ethical claim. Economics is not value neutral, and we need to make that explicit when we teach and talk about economics. Secondly, economics does not always deal with real-world problems, especially the way it is being taught in universities and in A-levels. And there's a real problem with that. That's why Rethinking Economics is a group of students that is rebelling against the economics curriculum. They want the economics curriculum to change to reflect what has happened in 2008 and what is still happening with growing global wealth inequality. And that hasn't necessarily changed. Thirdly, economics is not always plural, and we want economics to become more plural and more interdisciplinary. There's a need in the educational curriculum to engage students with different schools of thought. There's a need to make sure economics is informed by psychology, to be informed by sociology, to be informed by economic history. Something that's becoming less and less important. It's crazy that we don't teach economic history as much as we really should. It's crazy that when me, as a person who has never studied economics, decide to go, hey, maybe I'll pick up an A-level economics textbook, I see virtually nothing on economic history. So what am I learning from A-level economics? That's something we need to question. Fourthly, I think if we need to question economics in general, we need to question academia in general. Harvard, in 2012, released a memo that basically said journals have become so expensive that we can no longer subscribe to it. That's a problem. When one of the richest universities in the world cannot subscribe to journals, how do you expect individuals, students, people in the public who have no access to journals to be involved in the debate to innovate ideas? This is not going to happen because of the extreme pricing of journals. We need to make sure that if the public was to be part of a solution, they need access to knowledge. Journals is also another problem. It creates hierarchy and ranking of universities in a way that's perverse to teaching of many things, and not just economics. Because then people in universities, researchers, are forced to publish as much as possible, potentially not spending enough time on teaching, and potentially encourage them to develop this kind of group thinking mentality, tunnel vision, because they need to publish, they need to be accepted in certain journals. That's a bigger problem, not just with economics, but with academia. And if we have researchers that are more focused on researching so they can keep their tenure instead of teaching, that's a problem too. This gives a very strong moral message to young people in our society, and that's a problem. We need to encourage more girls to go to economics. I would like to conclude, Rethinking Economics is not about this blind ideological distrust of market. It's about thinking about how we can involve and include more conversations. It's about worrying that economics have these like a priori beliefs that we never really question, unlike many other fields. It's not just unconscious intellectual mainstream economics bashing. It's about including people that might not be considered professionals, qualified, or intellectuals because they have something to say. Because since the financial crisis, millions of people have been plunged right back into poverty. To think that they have nothing to say on the question of economics is simply bizarre. So, economics is a human puzzle. We need to understand that these different pieces fit together in a very complicated way that's going to take us longer to see the whole picture. We do not have the whole picture right now. Economics is simply too important to be left to only economists. Thank you.